and not the otherwise. That is, then what do we pact? What the people pact, the electoral people and the National Assembly of the Constituent Assembly with all the political parties of Colombia then, is that what we were going to be building was a social state of law, which means a society with universal rights and freedoms, and that the statute would have forced those richer people of the country pay more taxes, that there would be an access of the working class to more salaries and to the land, and there would be statutes for the right of law and also for the universal right to access health, education, to the pension system, to life. And where did all that went? Why are they trying to break this pact? Why thousands of Colombians were murdered after the Constitution of 1991 was approved? And what do we have to do now then? What is the convenient thing to do for Colombia now? Another 200,000 Colombians were murdered because what happened was not the Constitution of 1991, but paramilitaries. And from the governance, the paramilitary governance, they murdered those new 200,000 Colombians added to what the liberal power did. They put out this decision, and we had to perform debates, and we had to fill ourselves with sorrow, with hundreds and dozens of thousands of people, of mothers had to cry in pain, sometimes without even a home, after losing a family member, a mother, their husbands, their children. And then the genocide came to Colombia, and it came with authority, with the mark of the state of Colombia, until they decided to murder over 6,000 young men with bullets, with official bullets. And the home for the social justice and economic justice, the home, instead of the farmer to have lands, they murdered thousands of farmers. They pushed them out of their lands. Instead of there being a right for work, they approved the Law 50. They took advantage of the articles of the Constitution to build a neoliberalism that the only thing that has done is sink ourselves in more violence and sink ourselves in more social inequality. And today we are arriving at a moment in which Colombia has become one of the most violent countries of the world, the third country, more violent country, a more unequal country of the region. Is that what we want? No. That is why the people came to this social outburst, and how Cali was not involved. I wanted this to be very understood. The majority of the electors in Colombia in 2022, the majority of the people didn't want to follow with this tradition of violence and blood, and wanted to build peace through justice, through social justice, and picked Gustavo Petro president. your president has done nothing but fulfill what he presented to Colombia as a chronogram, to reform the pension system, to make it universal, to reform the health system, to make it universal and no one takes advantage of that money, to reform the working system for the working people to have a better dignified place, to build social justice, to destine the public money for the youth of Colombia, and try for Colombians to not to kill each other, and the economies, the illicit economies, be replaced by the legal economies. And this is the only thing that we have proposed, and I've been here in this post for 3 years, and the Congress of Colombia only approves one law. They dedicate themselves to the blockade, the institutional blockade. They dedicated themselves to demolish any decree that the president releases. They dedicated themselves to impede the reforms to be passed, the laws that the people need. And what does the Constitutional Court says when this happens? They say that if there is a conflict between the legislative power and the executive power, which means the president, because there is a blockade, there is a blockade of decisions of the president, then the people is the one to decide. The Constitution says that we are democracy, a participatory democracy, not only representative. Seems like they have forgotten about this, to know that here a democracy, a participatory democracy exists, which is nothing less than the power to take the decisions without intermediaries, local or nationals. The governor of Antioquia presented that there is a popular consultation in the southeast of Antioquia. We can't say that one works and the other don't, but it is forbidden. But it is the citizenship from Antioquia to decide. But how do we know if this is constitutional, legal, convenient? Because it represents a popular consultation that impedes that there is an authority behind this. And the people defends the people to a better life. If then it is inconvenient, it is illegal, how come? Their popular consultations do work, but ours don't. The Constitution of Colombia, says that Colombia is a democracy, a representative democracy, and a participatory democracy, and the people is sovereign. There are no power in Colombia that do not live from the credibility of the people, and there is a primary constituent that should express, and this is the moment to do so, because the Congress of Colombia and the Senate of the Republic that did so in the chamber today, as far as I know, do not want to approve a reform, a working reform, a labor reform for the workers, but they want to approve people to be hired by hours. Means that is worse than we are today. There, it was created a commission that was seeking an agreement for the Senate is divided in two, and nothing happened. And if the Chamber of Representatives, afraid the President had the majority of the Senate to approve something so harmful like a contract for hours, I asked the President of the Chamber, do not give one single step backward. I've said this. What do you think? Do you think we are a dividing movement? In every modern society, from capitalism, and Colombia is one of that, they have a contradiction, the interest of the capital and the interest of the working class. That is something that happens because in the production system there is two of them. One takes the money and the other takes the salary. And those who are working inside the machines is the working people. And then they have to organize themselves because they would kill each other like happened in Europe. That is called a social pact. And the social pact is not that the owner of the capital forces the working people to bend the knee like happened and murdered the working class. The social pact is that we are reached an agreement. We are not proposing socialism, which means that the people be the owners of the industries. I'm proposing two things at the end. First, that the people be there, that those who are there and the working people who is there, once the 6 p.m. arrives, they be paid and they are allowed to go home. And once the Friday is over, there be a celebration and be paid or be allowed to go to their families, to play football with their children, to hug each other. For that people, that family, be a great construction of democracy, a proposal to live. This is a proposal to live, not a proposal to die, not to kill each other, but to dialogue each other in a peaceful way. Don't ask me, as some were suggesting me yesterday, to poorly use the electorally speaking, the terrible attempt against the life of Senator Miguel Uribe. Using this electorally is not good. But don't ask me to use this as murder, the attempt to ask the people, the working class, not to take the reform that would allow them to go early for their homes. You can't ask me this. That is why I say to Efrain, let's do a last attempt. I know that he's applauded at the airplanes when he arrives at 1. But those sparkling lights, people do not go up on airplanes, just the ones who can. The people is on the streets, the people is on the squares. The people by millions want you to change your position and allow this in the Senate of the Republic. To allow a reform, a labor reform, progressive, dignified of the working class of Colombia.